So today we're going to talk about a little bit about Apple Unified Logs or AULs. How many of you have Apple macOS device endpoints in your environments? Right? Are you collecting some of these logs? If you haven't, hopefully we'll change some of that, right? Have you heard about them at least? A little bit, right? Well, notice that I'm mentioning from an iOS device perspective, and I say that because a lot of us might not be aware that the whole point of Unified is that it cuts across all different Apple products, right? The type of logging these devices keep is amazing. So we want to talk a little bit about what data they keep, and specifically for iOS devices, iPhones, tablets, and the like, even smartwatches, how can you pull some of that data out and process it and make some sense out of it, okay? And how it's gonna help majorly in the context of an investigation, which is my background here, okay? But it's applicable to any field that you be operating under. Let's see if my clicker wants to collaborate. There we go. Right, so let's talk about Apple Unified Logs. Like I mentioned, it's really important. They provide a way of centralizing the data. It's really compressed, which is pretty nice, except when you need to work with them because you have to decompress them, and then it's a lot of data to work with, right? So I'll give you some strategies on how to deal with that, right? It's not a text-based file, log file, it's just really massive, and I'll mention in a second. A typical macOS device might have maybe 20, 25 gigs of logs if you turn them into text, right? A JSON file, for example. But they're pretty compressed, less than a gig for all of that turns into 20. We'll see that in a second, right? So they're really important. So what do they have? Like I mentioned, these logs can go from, for example, here. Where's my red button? Here we go. 100 megabytes of the log itself as is stored in the device, and I'll show you how that's stored in a second. When you decompress it, it will go to 9 gigs, 10 or 20, in the case of like my MacBook Pro here, right? Millions of records, and the retention period is 30 days, that's fine, right? So you might think, well, what's it kept in those devices? Well, for example, in iOS devices, you have device orientation changes. Is it landscape? Is it, right, vertical, horizontal? What's that important to you? And a lot of use cases are for, in the civil matters investigation, let's say you're in a traffic accident, a car crash, and the car that hit you or that you hit was a vehicle operated by, say, Amazon. What do you think that person that's had that impact with the Amazon truck's gonna do? Yeah, for what? Because they're suing. They're immediately suing, right? So they will call a person like myself, at least the DF aspect of digital forensics, and figure out, is this driver being distracted? Was the person looking at the phone? Some of the things I didn't put in there, I just put a few, but I did put this one. Biometrics. Was the phone unlocked with your face? Was it unlocked with your finger, for example? Was it unlocked with the code? Were you hitting the volume up or down right before the crash? Were you messing? What application were you accessing at that time? Again, it's really sensitive time period, 30 days, but if you make that extraction, you can get a whole bunch of information. A lot of litigation is done based on these logs. Navigation starts with destination address. I'll give you an example today of that. You can go and navigate to wherever you're going, and you went and navigated to where the bridge is, and you dumped the body of the bridge, and then you went back, and you deleted your history. You deleted your logs about what happened, right? There's a lot of places to get information, right? Maybe it's on your watch, right? In this particular example, that entry of where you went and when you came back is kept on the log. It don't matter if you deleted it from the application itself, the log will retain it. For how long? 30 days, right? And again, some of my examples are pretty, the whole body and the thing, right? I work investigations, but you can think of use cases for your environment, right? Some of iOS devices come up in litigation holes all the time, right? What happened with the data? Was there spoliation? That's the right word, spoliation, right? Where somebody does something they shouldn't do. They tell them, don't delete any communications from regarding this case. And they go to log, and you find out they did what? They deleted it, right? They went to the app and did what they shouldn't be doing. The logs will give you some of that, right? If there's spoliation in the case, most likely the opposing party will win that case. And again, this is all made up of scenarios, and I'm thinking of scenarios from other colleagues. outside of law enforcement like myself to kind of relate. Most of my cases are regarding law enforcement aspect, right? These logs are essential, right? Power on device, power off. Was the flashlight turned on or off? And that, in criminal cases, has been the difference between a conviction, right? And some person that committed a crime possibly going free, right? Was the light turned on or off? Like the guy that said that, well, I ran out of battery when I went into the woods, and with the person that disappeared, I had no battery. Well, the phone had battery. There's a battery level there. It's just that they shut it off. So don't tell me you have no battery when the battery level, if I look at the logs, it's at 80%. Makes sense, right? A lot of great information, right? In macOS, VNC logins, login attempts, shutdowns of the device, time machine logs, right? That backup information, really good. When the user logged in, what directories were open. The amount of data in these logs is immense. And they're somewhat hard to navigate because there's so much data of them, okay? I'm gonna use my finger here instead of my clicker. All right, so the usual ways of looking at this data, and let's start with the Mac OS. You can use the console app, and that's a totally valid way of looking at the logs. You can use the same commands in a log environment, a command line environment, or terminal, I should say terminal, it's Mac. On a terminal environment, use Xcode to look at the console, or use third-party tools, right? I'm gonna try to sell you on using third-party tools, all right? And the reason is because I find it really hard to deal with the console. There's no clear way of exporting it, and if you have any way of exporting stuff from the console, let me know, because I don't know where it is. There's no button for it, right? You can do some screenshots, but that sucks. In a log that has 50 million lines, and your point of interest might include 300 lines, that's not gonna fit on a screenshot, right? So I find it really hard to work with these. You can use the terminal and use a thing called predicate. And a predicate, it's a way of querying the logs for information. But that requires kind of learning how predicates are formed. And I find that to be not of my liking, right? So I'll give you a solution on how to deal with that. Let me fix this something here. There we go. So I just demonstrated to you there's a lot of good artifacts that we can kind of get some value out of from, there we go, from the logs, right? So now, what are we going to do about it? How do we pull those logs? First, instead of doing the console, I want to pull the logs so I can manipulate it and deal with them, right? And this applies, well, let's get into the topic, right? So how we do it? We need to get those logs in what's called a log archive, .log archive, right? You can generate those on your device, or you can extract them from or pull them out from a full file system extraction in iOS devices. Has anybody heard the term full file system extraction before? It's okay if you haven't, right? Quick background. I got some folks that have. If you work digital forensics, mobile digital forensics like I do, and most criminal folks that work these type of cases, we see maybe 90 to 95, maybe 98% of our work is on phones. And it makes sense, right? If there's 20 of us, between the 20, there's more than 20, but let's say there's 20 of us, between the 20 of us, there must be maybe what, 35 phones, maybe 40 phones, right? I have 2 phones. How many have 2 phones here? The majority, right? So we deal with a lot of phones, right? So when you do a full file system extraction, you're taking an extraction from the phone, and it's the best kind of extraction you can get. That's different from doing an extraction from a computer. A computer, you can pretty much, if the drive's not encrypted, right, you can kind of pull every bit by bit information out and make an image out of it, right? In phones, it's not like that. Phones are file-based encryption, right? It's not only the storage is not encrypted, well it is, but not the storage as a unit. Each individual file within the storage unit is encrypted. Make sense? So the best extraction we can have is pull the files kind of logically, all of them that we can. And to do that, we have kind of exploit some vulnerabilities on the phone to do that, right? Those exploitations cost a lot of money, and there's a market for that. There's vendors that specialize in exploitation to be able for us to get access to that data. Make sense? So if you have an extraction from a phone, you can generate yourself one of those log archives. All right, we'll talk about that coming up. So a log archive is composed of nothing more, nothing less than the contents of Actually, I hit here the wrong button here. There we go. Of trace v3 files and some of those GUID kind of, no, it's not really a GUID, but kind of like alphanumeric files there on the far left. And your content of your logs are going to be the trace v3 files on the right, and all the metadata about those will be on the left. All right, where are those? Where do they exist? They exist in these two directories, at least in iOS devices. They're private var db diagnostics and they're private db uuid text. All right, that's where they live in our iOS devices. Now, how do we pull those? Let's get into that. There we go. Now, if you're going to pull these from a macOS computer that you have access to, what you do is you call sudo, or sudo, for Puerto Rico, sometimes like the U's and the O's and the A's and the E's. Log, collect, local device, output, and where you want it, right? A device is if you connect the target iOS device, you connect it to your macOS computer, you select the device from the list or from the name, and you pull out, and it will pull it out for you. That's one way of doing it with the computer. One way of pulling the .log archive. Remember, the .log archive is nothing more than a directory. Looks like a single file. It's not a single file. It's a directory that holds directories and files within it. Okay? That's all that it is. You have the commands here for the log command on how you can pull out those logs. All right? That's the easiest way, using a Mac computer. Now, there's third-party tools, UFate by Christian Peter, and iOS Log Acquisition Tool by Lionel Notar, which I actually know him in person. And they're awesome tools. They have a nice, really good GUI interface here. If I can make this a little bit larger. So you have there all your reporting, acquisition options, login option, connect the URL, 6 diagnose logs. And this is a topic for another hour, right? What's a 6 diagnose, right? It has some of that crash data. It contains partial AUL, Apple Unified Log information, the 6 diagnose. They're great. They have mobile installation logs. It tells you what apps have been doing for the last 30 days. If they were installed, uninstalled, fantastic. Another topic for another day. But the AUL is the more encompassing of all. Right? Give you an example of how these type of logs have served me in a case. We had a case where this individual went to this individual's house on a search warrant, and we had probable cause to be there because it was contraband images that shouldn't be there coming to the house. And we knew what app it was. I said, I'm going to pick Telegram, but it wasn't Telegram. Let's say Telegram. I said, have you heard about Telegram? Like, Telegram? I don't know what Telegram is. I don't know nothing about it. Never heard it. I don't know. We took the phone. No, I took the phone. And as the investigator who were doing the interview, I was able to quickly pull out those 6 diagnosed logs. They're pretty easy to get out, right? Put the command, pull them out, and I was able to determine that the app was installed, and it was uninstalled a minute after we knocked down the door. Look, what a coincidence, right? So I called the investigator and said, hey, man, this guy, as we knocked, he was deleting the app. So this, you got to turn those screws a little bit, right? And at that point, we went from interrogation to what? Sorry, I said it. So from interview to interrogation, right? And the guy confessed. But at that point, obviously, we know everything, which we do, of course, except when we don't. So the point of this is a lot of great information. There's tooling. This tooling is open source. It's free. So it's for general use there. I keep clicking. Yes?
So with Apple security,
Mm-hmm.
don't you need to have the phone unlocked to actually be able to access that data? Or you can do when it's locked?
It has to be unlocked. Now, that being said, right? I'm going to talk about the criminal investigation environment and the private sector environment. From the criminal investigative environment, we have tools that allow us to defeat some of that, and it depends on the device and all that. So we can get to it in different ways. For example, if I'm able to get a full file system extraction, it's because I have access to the device, either because I have the PIN or password or whatever, or because we got some exploit to do that. Obviously, it's really important, everybody understands, it's lawful access. It means that I can't go pick your phone because I'm curious and pull the stuff out and see, what were you doing last night at midnight? Were you sleeping or doing something else? That's not a thing. Well, and I could try and do it. You know what's going to happen, right? Yeah, I'm going to jail, violating your civil rights, right? So not allowed right now. We got the judge to approve us to do that. So we have those tools. Now, from the private sector, right? So most of our work is going to be in what's called consent, right? Consent purposes. You might have access to the device because you have mobile device management, maybe, or the person, as part of the legal process, has to give us that access. And there's tools available to private sectors. For example, Magnet Verikey, you heard about it? It's a product for private sector. It will not defeat the passcode, but if you have the passcode, if you have consent, it will let you do the extractions that you need for your cases.
So it works as parents. For parents with their kids, it's perfect.
Look, I mean, everybody parents their own way. I have a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, right? And, if I'm paying for that phone, it's my phone. As simple as that. And even if I didn't pay for it, and you're a minor and you're my son, it's still my phone. Amen, brother. So that's another story, right? So the point is, there's tooling. Celebrate, a pretty well-known company, also sell a product for the private sector. Again, it's base consent extractions. Okay, that's the big deal. And it's available to companies. Yes, a comment over here, question?
Those tools won't give you full file by themselves. Magnet and Celebrate won't give you full file access.
Should have a what?
Will Magnet and Celebrate give you full file access?
Full file system access. Well, again, depends on the device. But the big trick is not trick. The big thing is having consent. If you don't have the passcode for that phone, you're not going to be able to do nothing with it.
Well, no. So if you have an MDM, you can unlock it.
Of course.
You still have to have some kind of exploit. Like the one I know is like checkmate, right? Checkmate, right?
Yeah, for the old chipsets. Yeah.
My understanding is the new one, you don't get the same access, full system file access, unless you actually have an exploit. Is that not correct? Or if you can unlock the device, you get access to that.
So I'm gonna make it real quick, right? Right. So there's different states of extraction. Before first unlocked, after first unlocked, and then full file system extractions. And between the after first unlocked and the full file systems, logical extractions, right? I'm not gonna be with detail. What that means is that if a phone is off, right, and you turn it on, and you don't put your PIN code in, I may be able to pull something really little. How do you know that? An example of that. If your phone is on, you haven't logged in, and somebody calls you, can you see who's calling you on the screen? No, you cannot. If you logged in at least once, then you can. Make sense? The reason is that all that data, that's your contact information, is not going to be accessible to a portion of your system until you logged in at least once. Make sense? So you will receive calls for sure. You'll receive text messages, but you won't get that correlation on the screen of who's doing it until you log in for the first time. Make sense? Right. So for my purposes, I want to have phones to be in a after first lock, or right, first unlock, I should say. Yes.
All this data resides on the phone, not in the house, so they check the phone with the body.
Look, I'm gonna answer the question. I want to say yes. It's a great question. Actually, it's more interesting than some of the stuff here. So I'm gonna go with you. Right. So I'll get that in a second. So what that means is that there's different states where the phone could be in. Right. If you have your passcode, you can get logical, that in between the full and, after you unlocked it, you can get that pretty easily. But it will not be a complete picture of the phone, or at least as complete as we could get with a higher level. I'm going to call it FFS, so don't say the whole thing, full file system. FFS, okay? You can do it with just unlock, but you've missed some things, right? Are exploit needed? Yeah, they are. Depending on the device, Android happens too. You may have the PIN code and still need an exploit to be able to get that really deep level extraction. So we depend, both private sector and the government, we depend on companies working on those exploits. And as Apple patches those, then it's like a cat and game type of mouse, right? And this is not something secret, right? Back in the day, maybe 10 years ago, I couldn't talk about it, right? But that's just really well known. That's just how technology is, right? You come out with a defense to a certain exploitation, and somebody tries to go around it or develop a new one. It's kind of cat and mouse. Even in our environments, we're trying to patch those folks trying to get in, and they try to get in different ways, right? And we're always trying to get into that environment. So these tools allow you to get some of those. They're not foolproof. They're not 100% coverage. They are not. But depending on what your mission set, if you're in law enforcement, on your environment looks in your private sector, you'll select the set of tools and phones that will be easy for you. But my point is this. If you have an environment where you know mobile devices are going to be endpoints, make sure you approve devices with proper MDM, proper access that you can enable them to manage and be responsive to legal holes or whatever it is, right? If you buy the latest iPhone, just because it's the latest, you gotta think ahead, what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish by giving your employees these devices, and what liabilities or exposure you will have, and how you can mitigate those by having the proper tooling, extraction methods to deal with those. Does that make sense? Yeah? Now, what happens is, this criminal, right? And commits a crime, and then, totally destroys the phone, right? And there's no way to know what happened. Well, not necessarily, right? A lot of stuff, data, is truly kept in the cloud. And we usually have legal procedures, and that happens also in civil litigations, right? We send paper to the company to give us stuff. It's becoming harder because now a lot of that data is kept also encrypted at rest outside. Like, companies don't want those keys anymore, right? They want to free their hands from it. So they put it on the user. So that's another complex scenario. But don't think only on phones, because that person might have been driven, let's say, a Mercedes. Let me say a Mercedes vehicle to commit the crime. And guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to go inside that Mercedes vehicle. I'm going to take the entertainment system. I'm going to pull it out. I'm going to make a chip off. You know what chip off is? The chip, you kind of put some heat on it, and you put it out. And I'm going to read it. And that car has navigation in it. And guess what? I'm able to see where that car was. And that car went to the scene where the body was found. And you got rid of your phone, but your car ratted you out, right? So there is multiple, and this is my work. There's multiple avenues of investigation and of where you need to go and actually solve that crime to get justice to those victims. Yes?
Speaking of car, like with Apple CarPlay and all of that, does the phone leave a bunch of residual data on the car itself when it's not connected to the phone?
How many use the CarPlay thing when they rent a car and you Wi-Fi to it? You don't, right? Well, if you do, and I look at that car later, I'm gonna find your contact list. I'm gonna find what songs you play. So there's some stuff that is kept. Now, that being said, there's a differentiation between this car itself as it navigates and does things, and when the phone is connected. The phone usually is more like when you connect to a car, the car's more like a screen to the phone, right? So you control most of it through the phone, but the screen kind of does that access, and there's some data moved. But the really juicy data is on the car itself. Some of these cars they detect if you're at a stoplight, if the speed you were going, how hard you hit the brakes, if it triggered any other of the alert systems, your orientation, and in crash reconstruction, those are key, right? You make sure that the car was properly calibrated, and if those sensors are calibrated, I can tell you if that car was at whatever speed was going, and if it hit and what happened, right? And it's crazy how much detail those has. Cars like Teslas, for example, have cameras everywhere. Yes?
I'm asking this for a friend. Is there a way to manually delete your logs before the 30 days is up?
Look, if I tell you how to kill you. No, I'm just kidding.
This is for a friend. I'm doing research.
Oh, you're making me fired, don't you?
Okay,
No.
let me rephrase that question.
Mm.
If the phone gets completely factory wiped, does it also remove the previous logs?
The answer is yes, but we all know how the encryption works, right? Does it really delete the data? It doesn't. What's it do? Takes the keys, which functionally is what? Wiping it, functionally, right? And I made this distinction for us because I know you understand. If I try to explain that to normal folk, they'll be like, so it's there. Well, it's there, but not really there. So yeah, so when you wipe that phone, those keys are chugged, right? But then again, there's also secondary evidential sources, right? In the cloud, some of these apps. So not everything is kept in Apple or in Google, right? Apps themselves will have their own thing. So I might not find data at the Google server, but the app that we're using has its own thing. And I can go, let's say a running app, let's say Strava or whatever. And you look at Strava. So when you do your investigations, open your mind. Don't only think operating system, that's it. Apps software will have their own cloud systems that you can actually exploit for your cases, legal holds, whatever it is, if you're aware of how that works. Yes? It depends. So the thing with the ODB port is that the ODB port deals with the sensors, some of the sensors in the car, like the airbag, the door, stuff like that. But the entertainment system will go beyond some of those capabilities, like navigation. The ODB port, that's when you have an engine light, and what's that? And they go put the thing in the port, and they read it, and they charge you $100, and you just needed to just tighten your tank, a gas tank thing lid. Like, just twist it 5 more times and the light will go off. That's fantastic. $100. A friend of mine, happened to a friend of mine, right? So that port will give you some sensor data, right? And there's consideration how do you extract that properly because it might be important, right? Do I want to know when the door was open or not? In a particular case, I might. And some of that data might be replicated in that entertainment system. And we call it entertainment system because it controls the radio, controls the screens, different things, navigation. So it might be duplicated, but the juicy stuff is going to be in that head-up unit, right? And it might be a chip off. I might reach from different points, so I put this silly glasses that I can look. I use bifocals already, right? But ones are even stronger than the ones I use daily, just to be able to connect to the points and do some reads from that, right? Really interesting stuff. Yes?
Can you reduce the size that you allow your phone to use for log files?
Somebody's so curious.
This friend I have has got a lot of questions.
You know what? How about you give me your phone? Let me show you with your phone. Can I hold it in my hand and look at it for a second? Do I have your consent to look at your phone, sir?
Not at all.
What? No, I mean, obviously there's some let me put it this way, some customization you can do to your devices, right? The best option, I'll be straight with you, to avoid any problem with the law is to not commit crimes. that's the best surefire way of. Yeah. Don't commit crimes, so the law won't go after you. All right. All right. So again, it's a great question. I appreciate those. It's fantastic. I love this stuff. So part of this environment, we talk about this environment where stuff is, right? So these logs also are part of that process, keeping that information. And these are open source tools. I think Lioness is not open source; it's free. Not open source, I can't remember, but it will do it for you, and they work really well. I used them in the past, and we'll use them in the future. They are, and that's another thing. This whole presentation, these tools, and a tool that I made myself and I share with you, is a great benefit because you get, if you don't like it, you get your money back, guaranteed, 100%, because they're totally free. So I'll give you absolutely nothing back. Yeah, yes, the answer is yes. What I will do is, hopefully before, as we're saying goodbye, I share the link. I haven't put them in the cloud yet, but I can put them real quickly and show you the link, and you can pull them from there. Does that work? Anything is possible if you try hard enough. Yes?
So according to your advice, dump the body like Monroe, your Jake, and your car like Bolton.
Well, let me tell you, I have gotten phones from the bottom of lakes, and they bring them to me in the lake water like this in a bucket, and put it on my desk, and I pull stuff from it. So again, the takeaway is, if you don't want to get caught doing a crime, what? Don't commit the crime. Well, what's the saying? If you're not willing to do the time, don't commit the crime. Are they time to time? Don't commit the crime, right? Something like that, right? If the glove don't fit, a different case. All right. Yes. Yes, and this is my opinion. There's this war between Android users and iOS users and all that. I like both, right? But what I'm seeing is, you see, for example, Apple coming up with a feature, and then Android kind of follows suit. So one big feature that we're seeing lately is this kind of lockdown mode that iOS devices have. If you have an iOS phone, after that first unlock that I mentioned, where the data is accessible, you logged in once, it's a better state because you logged in first. After 2 days, that thing will get out of after first unlock and go to BFU, before first unlock. And then it's harder for either myself or other processes, for example, consent. You have consent, you can't get in, right? To pull that data out. So there is you have to be aware that if you care about some of this data, you gotta get to it as quickly as you can. Don't make it wait. If an agent comes to me with an important phone on a Friday, well, it's gonna be a long Friday for me, right? Because I'll get you in a second. I can't just leave it there, because by the time it's Monday comes around, I lost access to the data. And there's solutions for that, right? And that same with those logs. The logs look, what, 30 days, right? If you know there's something coming or something that, let's say a device in your environment is doing something suspicious, get that data out as soon as you can because it's volatile. And we want to make sure we keep access to that. I have a comment over here, question?
So, we have 28 to 30 days. So if it's in an evidence locker or the phone is not used for 30 days, say the battery dies and then it turns up someplace. So the first time you turn it on, what happens if it's after 45 days, we'll say, those logs get wiped automatically?
Yes, sir. Every day that passes, let me rephrase this back. With the Apple Unified Logs, I don't want to misspeak. I haven't done the testing myself on how they're being deleted. It's about one by one. So I don't want to speak out of turn. I can give you an example of things that I have tested, for example, in iOS devices, and this also happens in macOS devices. There's some data kept in the files that are called the biome directories under SecB files. I'm not going to bore you with the details, not for today. But same thing with Knowledge C database, SQLite database. Those keep track of many activities happening on the phone. Quick example, let's say you send a text message and you delete the text message, a copy of that text message is kept in the Knowledge C DB if you have an older iOS device, or in the biome folder under SecB files, which is nothing more than some custom put above files in there. Okay. Every day that passes, the data for that day goes away because the data from today will take place from it. Make sense? So every day that comes in is a day that comes out. That's why I made the point with my agents, like, if you have something that's important, let me know and give it to me now so I can at least extract it and at least we have that kind of frozen in time. Because as time passes, I can't stop it. Can I put a write blocker on a phone? It's just how it is. And back in the day, well, if you don't put a write blocker, that's not forensic. Forensic is not if you put a write blocker on it or not, right? Forensic is, are you following a process that takes into account the technology you're dealing with in order to maximize the data you're collecting in order to present it at court. That's what forensics is. And even when we're doing remediations and stuff like that, and looking for attribution, we gotta think ahead. Will this one day hit court? And if so, we need to be prepared for that, right? All the time. That's normal, right? So as you all know, our law system is one of what we're looking for, adversarial, and that's fine, right? We want to get to the truth by argumentation and really testing the things that we're doing, right? And that's why myself and other folks in the field, we're constantly doing testing. The SecB files I mentioned, an examiner from Seminole County, Geraldine Bly, and myself were the first people that were able to kind of reverse engineer that, because Apple will do things and not tell you. They'll go, hey, here's a spec of how this works. That's not going to happen. And if you ask them, they will never respond to you. So we have to reverse engineer some of that, which means I have to test. It can't be because I said so. It's because I had all these use cases, scenarios, I tried it, and I made sense of it, right? And this gets contested all the time. So we have to do a really good job at understanding how these things work, test it thoroughly, and then go with it, which I could go into a big tangent on AI and people using AI and then showing, hey, this is what it is, and then it's not. I'm not going to do that today because it's another hour. But just be aware that your work has to be tested. You have to test it, validate, and verify. You verify your outputs and validate your processes. And you validate your processes when you have enough verified outputs. It has to be enough because a broken clock can be right what? Twice a day. And if you make those two measurements, at that time, guess what? Oh, it's validated, and it's not, right? So yeah, there's a lot of that, and that speaks also to how do we prepare ourselves and digital forensic examiners like myself as experts, right? We gotta know our stuff because we'll be questioned on the stand. Have you seen the Karen Reed case? You're familiar with that case? Karen Reed, right? Long story short, this lady was accused of hitting her boyfriend with a car and killing him and leaving him out in the snow to die in a blizzard. And that's a big case, a big, argument about it, right? And after a first hung jury, and then she was acquitted, right? And that's what jury says, that's what goes, right? There was a lot of testimony there, and some of the experts from different sides were not up to par to what's expected from your users, not users, but your stakeholders, which would be the jury and the citizens, right? And that's important. You can have the truth on your side. You're not able to present it effectively it's like you didn't have it. And that speaks when you talk about, say, to the board of directors in your company, or trying to convince somebody in your workplace that the best course of action is this one. You may have the facts, but you gotta have also the verb, the presence, the style, and the expertise to be able to convince somebody to do what to you is obviously correct. Make sense? There's a level of humility there, and that humility comes from actually testing your stuff, knowing that you will fail, and you have to continue to fail until you get it right. Make sense? And then you get it right, share it with others. Is that?
Is that the dollar standard?
Oh, double standard. So the double standard is interesting. That's part of it, right? So the double standard, if you're not familiar with, before they allow me to testify as an expert, the judge will make a determination if I'm really an expert. What does that entail? First of all, it entails my preparation, to have the degrees and the studies, certifications. How long have you been doing this? Because I could be an expert in one thing, but not in others, right? I can maybe admit as an expert in mobile forensics, iOS, Android devices, as my level of expertise. But even though I touch cars here and there, I say here and there, I do some extractions, but I might not be considered as an expert in vehicle forensics. Does that make sense? Now, education is one piece. Use of experience, training and experience. The next part is what processes are we using? The double standard also applies to how you do things. Is this method used widely in the field of science, right? What are the error rates? Is this trusted? Other folks use it. Is there peer review research on it? A lot of that goes into that, and both sides of the argument present those to the judge, and then the judge will determine. Most times, the judge, I don't want to say lenient, that's not the right word. The judges allow some experts that, in my opinion, might not be experts, in my opinion, because at the end of the day, determination of what's true or not falls to who? To the jury, right? To the jury. But for the most part, that being said, my opinion doesn't mean that it's right. The judges have their determinations, and I've seen also judges strike people on procedures from trial too, because they're not scientific or whatever, right? And I go through that process as well, as it should be. So the double, again, I give you like a quick summarized version. There's more legal things into it. And that's something that I really appreciate of our legal system. Some other legal systems, I teach a lot in Latin America. Some like the previous speaker and some of us here, I'm from Puerto Rico, so I speak native Spanish. And they don't have that. So it's even more of a challenge to prevent swindlers and scam artists to come into court and say nonsense. But double standard, really look it up, you're not familiar, really interesting piece of legal information there. So.
I have another question. I want to tell you why I'm asking, because you're going to really investigate.
Are you going to give me the phone or what?
I work with a nonprofit that actually works with you guys in geolocating people who traffic children and create child abuse material.
Excellent.
And we find that these guys often are on Android phones, and they use Tor, and they use VPNs, and sometimes encrypted containers.
Yep.
Will VPNs, Tor, encrypted containers actually stop you from being able to find these system logs?
To any question, if you have examiner, or not even examiner, you work in the intrusion, all that type of stuff, detection, CTI, whatever. If you ask you a question, what's the most proper answer you're going to give them? It what? It depends. It depends. Let me give a quick example, right? So some folks use Tor bundles apps in their devices, right? And when it does that, it goes and deletes the history. You know, the history is kept on a SQLite database. Well, interesting enough, whenever you go to a website, there's a little snapshot of the website that's kept. Because when you go to home, you don't go to any page, just home of the browser. You see those snapshots there so you can pick the latest places you've been. That's not deleted when you close the Tor bundle app, which is Firefox on top of the Tor communications network, right? So those screenshots are still there. To give you an example, right? Let me use another example of a privacy bundle. And if you go to A. Brignoni, that's the first letter of my name, Alexis, A. and Brignoni, BRIGNONI.com. That's my blog. I did some research some years ago. The Firefox privacy browser, it deletes a SQLite database, but it keeps the level DB data within the browser. If you know what level DB, key value pair storage system, and I could find the pages the person was there in it. There's other stuff there. I had to kind of do some determinations, but it's there, and I could get where the pages the suspect was outside of the web history. Make sense? So there's always, like every interaction leads to what? It's a trace. That's a Lockhart principle, right? That's where forensics in general is founded upon. Every interaction leaves a trace. Yes?
Have you ever had to deal with that at all? Any of those like security specific
Well, I will say this, right? There is a good use for security-based devices. There's nothing wrong for you to have one of those devices, right? Maybe I don't want nobody to know my IRS taxes or something. I don't know, whatever, right? Again, I will only say this: we work with all sorts of devices, and we try to get to the data lawfully, right? Some of that I can share with you, some of that I cannot, neither confirm nor deny. The thing is that we're trying to keep the public safe, and we do it lawfully within the constitutional means. That's all I can tell about you. Hopefully that helps. If not, I'm sorry.
What would you advise? First, to have a forensic copy of the device before you start manipulating, or you just do live forensics?
It depends. It depends. So there's cases where, first of all, live forensics, you want somebody that knows what they're doing, right? Sometimes live forensics is what's needed at the moment. And that doesn't mean it's not forensic. You have to write down what you're doing, how you did it, so it's able to be traced, right? In some life or death scenarios, if I have a phone that's open, I can't wait to hook it up to a machine and wait for that to pull, right? And when the Pulse shooting happened, I was the responding examiner because FBI was the only one there, right? And I had to deal with around 50 phones that were covering blood, bone, hair, and water, right? And I had to go in there and identify the suspect's phone because I needed to know if there were other shooters, other threats coming. I don't have time to maybe connect it to a machine and wait a couple of hours. And I'm being kind. It's usually longer to get that extraction. So I had to take notes of what I'm doing. So the examiner will make those determinations depending on the context. And I've done it multiple times. It hasn't been contested at court because I take my good notes of what happened and why it was important to preserve that information. At the end of the day, the most important thing is to preserve. If you see a computer that's on and you have reason to believe there's evidence there, what's the first thing you're going to do before you turn it off? I do. Pull what? What happens? What disappears when you turn the computer off? The memory, right? That memory, it just goes away. You want to make a pull that memory out because I don't want to be the guy that the other side accuses of, hey, there were, whatever, 128 gigs of memory of possible exculpatory evidence that you did not get it. So I will get those, right? You got to think of volatility of data. Again, going to the logs, I think about the volatility of these logs. And by the way, Walter, cut me off because I don't stop talking, okay? All right. The volatility, right? 30 days. The memory, you turn it off, it goes away. Oh, a really nice, interesting tidbit. Again, this is nothing classified. It's out there. It's a company called MSIB. They're for Sweden. They do more forensic tooling for that, and they found a way of reading that memory of Android devices. And the cool thing about memory from Android devices is that it's not as volatile as you think when you think of a computer. You can turn that phone off, and that stuff is kept there for the longest. I did a pull on a Samsung device. I think Samsung device using their tool. And I found stuff in those logs that went back. Well, not I lied about that. An examiner, friend of mine, Heather Charpentier. We have a podcast. We talk about some of this stuff. And she did that pull. We got stuff there from years back. Really interesting things. So there's always new developments in how they operate, and how we can extract value for our investigations or for our use cases in our environments from those devices. So yeah, it depends. Does that help? Right, so let's say data's volatile, right? You want to pull it as soon as you can. Let's say you were able to, or you provided a FFS extraction of that device, iOS device, but they didn't give you log archive. They didn't connect to the computer. They didn't use the tools. What do you do? So what you do is you take the contents of the directories that we talked about first, right? The UUID text directories, put them both in a single directory, and then you add a plist that looks just like this one. The plist will only have that content you see on the screen, nothing else. The only thing you need to be aware of is that little number there, which says OS archive version under the key. The value is an integer, a 4. Take a note of that because depending on what type of iOS device you're talking about, you might need to change that number, right? If it's a more modern one, you put a 5. And when you do that, right, and you move that directory and put it in a Mac system, right, it's gonna be recognized as a .log archive. Make sense? So you take the data from those directories, make that little plist with these contents that I showed you here, and I also have this on a blog, by the way. So you go to my blog, you'll see that in detail how to do it. And you recreated that log archive out of an FFS extraction, which is pretty neat. And I say this because, at least for law enforcement, looking at an Apple Unified Log is a new thing. I'm a voice in the desert, like the preacher, right? Trying to tell folks, hey, use this in your investigations. If you have Mac endpoints, log these or look how you can actually get value out of this. Okay, see if your tools support it, and they do use it. There's a lot of good stuff in it, right? A voice crying in the desert. Little religious thing going on there. All right. Now, we went from understanding that the logs are important. We know how to pull them out, either with tools, using your Mac and a command, or pulling them out of the extraction itself with the plist that we need to generate, right? Like I mentioned before, I don't want to work with them in that format. Using console is really cumbersome. I cannot export. I don't want to learn predicate to do that. So what I do is I use the log command on my Mac computer, and I'm going to rename that log archive. Whatever name I'm going to put, I'll give you what the name that my tool uses, which is going to be logarchive.json. So you take the name of the log archive, whatever it is, and you're going to pull it out or convert it to a JSON file using the log command. Make sense? Now I have that data in a way that I can actually read it, because as you know, JSON is both machine and what? Human readable. All right? Now it's going to decompress really large. It's text now, but that's okay. We got a way to deal with that, right? For example, this example is from my Mac computer. The archive is a little bit under 2 gigs, and when I explode it like that, it goes up to almost 30 gigs. A lot of data. But don't despair, don't despair. We got some solutions. Now, what do I do? I'm not going to read that for you. We're going to keep moving along. So that JSON data, I'm going to put it inside a SQLite database. Who here knows how to do SQL or SQL queries? Oh. ChatGPT. You got to verify, though. You got to verify. One day it'll be good, and one day it will be who knows what, right? But no kidding aside, right? ChatGPT, that's one way you can actually throw a SQLite database and say, hey, well, how does this work? What do these tables do? And that being said, you need to verify. All right, so look, I'm really not a big proponent of using generative AI, because there's AI and there's generative AI. It's two different things, right? I'm not really a proponent of that. For the same reasons, I don't suggest we use Gen AI in a doctor setting. I don't want Gen AI to give me medicines, you know what I mean? Or to be driving my plane or driving my car, right? But that's another topic I think for another day. Just be careful when you do those things. Make sure that you understand what you're doing. I have to say this. If you have a tool that provides outputs, right? The tool won't make you an expert. The tool will not make you an expert. You might feel like an expert. It might reward you as an expert until it doesn't, and you crash. There have been folks that was like, oh my gosh. There's this dude went to court as an expert saying, well, the valuation of this property was X amount for a legal proceeding, right? And the other side said, well, we did not come to the same conclusion. How the person got it? It used Copilot. Copilot is the one from Microsoft, right? Copilot. And the guy couldn't explain how it worked. Can you believe the judge went on his Windows computer with Copilot and asked the same things the dude asked? And guess what? Different result. What, right? So you can use those tools, but you have to be an expert to use those tools, right? It's like a knife, right? You can cut bread with it, or if you don't know what you're doing, you're gonna cut yourself. Or a machete, right? If you don't know how to use the machete, you're gonna cut your leg off. So be careful there, right? It's like a snake, it's gonna bite you, you don't know how to handle it, all right? Enough with the tangents. I'm gonna go and put it, my other tangent, I'm gonna put it in a SQLite database, and I can query using SQL commands. Easy peasy that way, right? That makes it way more manageable, right? This is a tool that I started about 5 or 6 years ago. It's called the Leaps. There's different types of leaps. There's one from iLeap for iOS, A-Leap for Android, R-Leap for returns. That means if you get a return from Google or Twitter or Snapchat from legal process, you can parse it there. There's one for V-Leap for vehicles, and we used to have one for Chromebooks, but Chromebooks cannot be extracted as of today. Another story for another day, and that's it, right? They're really neat because it allows you to take that JSON file, convert it into a SQLite database, and then run some queries that I pre-made that you can get some value out of it, okay? And I'll show you some of that now. I know, I'm almost done. I'm there, almost there. I told Walter to tell me to shut up. All right, so what do? You download it, and you can run it from the binaries that I have provided for you, or you can run it from the Python scripts. The good thing about going to the repo in GitHub and downloading the Python scripts, you get the latest version of these things. Because I don't do new binaries every single time. The reason for that is that if I put a GitHub action to do that, that's great, but I have to test them and whatever. Run it from the binaries are good, or latest version, run from the scripts. Now, you're gonna select the directory that has the logarchive.json file. Remember, when you do the conversion from logarchive to JSON, make sure for my tool to recognize it, to call it logarchive.json. And I'll be remiss if I say it's my tool, it's a community tool. I got a group of 8 full-time developers. I say full-time, I mean that we're all constantly talking to each other about the tooling and how to make it better. About 8 folks from around the world helping and working together with this. I provide them a salary of a total of $0.00 for their work. It's all community work. And then I have dozens of people that have done artifacts for this. The point with the leaves here is that I'm making a video this week on how to make artifacts in the latest version. The big point of it is you can use this framework for your own purpose. You can make your own artifacts and put them in the framework, and the framework will pull the data out for you in a way that's easy for you to digest. Make sense? I'll show you that in a second. Okay, but you get it? You get the binaries there under the releases, and iLeap is the name of the repo. That's what you get, iLeap. If you go a level back to A. Brignoni, you can find all the repos for the leaps there. All right. Yes? If I do what?
I mean, for your cases, when you take them to court, correlate the results you have from this app with some other sources?
Oh, that's a great question. That's a great question. So, excellent question. So one thing, if you look at my repo, it says a triaging tool. What it means is that it will get your resource quickly. I'll give you an example of that. I had a case with OPD. They brought in like 30 phones. And the paid tools, the expensive tools, the licensing comes in a dongle, right? And you might have only like 2 dongles for 35 phones. You gotta maximize the expensive tool usage. So what do? This tool, you put it on 35 computers for free, put a phone on each, and then look quickly at that output and say, okay, this phone and this phone will use the dongle first. That's the triaging aspect of it, right? Now, that being said, I call it triaging just to make sure people get the idea that you need to verify your stuff. But it don't matter what tool that you use, you need to verify your stuff. Even if you do verification, which is a pretty thing that we used to do 5 years ago or 10 years ago, we thought that if I run it through one tool and then run it through a different tool, I'm verified, I'm validated, I'm good. Well, guess what? Some of these tools, they might be using the underlying same APIs or ISOs or whatever it is, binaries, to get to the result. So just because they're different tools, I'm not getting 2 different results. Make sense? Because underneath, they're using the same code. So that's not gonna help, right? So the way I approach this with my examiners, people that I teach, is use a tool, use multiple tools. That's great. Your smoking evidence, you know how you're gonna determine that? You're gonna eyeball the source. You're gonna go into the seg file, look at the protobuf, and put eyes on it. You will take your hex editor. I know you hate it. I don't care. You're gonna go to the offset and find that evidence and see it with your own eyes. And then you put that in there. Make sense? And with the Gen I abstraction, it's gonna be even worse. You gotta put eyes on stuff, all right? So let's wrap it up. So let me show you this real quick. The tool will run, it will use some output. And since I'm short on time, I'm just gonna show you straight up. So let me stop here. Where's my mouse? Here we go. Let me go get a report here. Because I have the screenshot, but I'd rather show you straight up on a report. Whoop. All right. So now we got that out of the way. Let's look for a report that I have here, kind of pre-made from the output directory. Okay, perfect. All right. Can we see that more or less? All right, so when you run the tool, and again, it's really easy. You run the binary, you see the screen, select the things you need to select. You're gonna get a report like this. It's gonna say, iLeap report and the date you run that thing, right? You ran it. And if you're running for an iOS device, you'll get different artifacts. There's some HTMLs here. You go to the index, you will get, and actually let me open this with Chrome. I run it before, a few minutes before. Look, there's no crimes in there, if that's what you consider to be good. No crimes. This is actually test data from Heather, my friend, that she used. I want to show you just one artifact here. So here's some artifacts that are pulled. Now, This is an HTML report. HTML reports cannot show you a lot of data because if you have an HTML file that's, let's say, a gig, what's going to happen to your browser? It's going to crap out, right? So what I've done is some of this stuff I show it here, some of the stuff is going to be in the database, and you have to go into the database and look for it. I have a solution that we're coming up. We're in alpha stage. It's called Lava, Leafs Artifact Viewer App. And that will allow you, I'm going to show how it looks real quick, to be able to use this screen to be able to look at that data within this environment all together. So the original way was HTML. Files are too large, cannot be shown. You have to go to the database to look at them. With Lava, you can see all of them in one place. All right, and allow this to happen for a couple of versions here. Come on, there we go. There we go. Again, alpha things, right? And you can look at the things. Now, I'm not gonna belabor that point. I'm gonna show you here, for example, one artifact, the one that I care about here. Where is it? I think I opened the wrong report. Let me see if I got the right one. 1 second here. I'm burning my time here. I opened the right one. Flashlight, Bluetooth, airplane. I did not pull the right one. Oh, there it is, navigation. This is the right one. Okay, good. But I'm opening it on the wrong browser. Let me pull that browser over here. So I got it though, that's good. Come on. There we go. And I need to hide this. I just closed it. I'm an idiot. I'm dealing with two screens, it's killing me. Yeah. You know what I'm gonna do? So I'm running so short out of time here. Actually, I think I can still do it. I'm gonna do it from here. Let's do it from here, that's fine. Do we have here the navigation? Can you see it? I'm on it, right? All right, so what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna go here and show you some of that. I'm too, oh, here we go. So look at the sense there on the top, starting route, right? It's starting some navigation, and it's going where? Normal, going to where? PetSmart, right? Now, I have here a couple different trace IDs. Some of these logs, different processes will log or send to the log the same information. So what I want to do is, I want to go here. Good thing that I have the screen over here. Although I'm on the right, I cannot see it here, but okay, I got it now. I'm gonna just select one of the processes here. There we go. Much better. Good. Now, PetSmart, so I don't get the repeated, and then turn right into Best Road, if you change this. And then at 1.7 miles, turn left onto Mannix Road. I can go to the whole thing, my friend going from her house in Best Road all the way to PetSmart, and from PetSmart all the way back to her house. And I'm just gonna go here to the end of it.
How do we know where your friend lives?
Look, that's why it says Best Road into the state or the city.
Can you visualize it?
Hmm?
Can you visualize it?
And where the place is?
Can you take all that data and visualize it on a map? To show it to someone instead of looking at the text?
Yes. So this particular log is using the navigation that shows on the screen, and that's what it's logging. But some of these logs also keep the lat and longs. If that's the case, what I do is I take the lat and longs with the coding that I do, and I create, actually let me see if I have one here. I create a file that you can open in Google Maps to actually look at it in the map. What is it, the extension? I just blanked out. KML, thank you. Yes, sir. 10 points to Gryffindor. It makes a KML that you can do that.
I'm gonna get arrested tonight.
I should have said Slytherin, I think. Yes.
The subcategory said apple.com/Siri was creating those logs. Does Siri do most of the logs?
Oh, no. I mean, there's a bunch of processes do that. And Siri, just because it says Siri doesn't mean that you talk to Siri. Siri this does not mean that. There's a lot of app intents, another topic for another day, that they have like the Siri kind of environment, logging it, but it has nothing to do with you talking to Siri. And let me give you a quick example of that. A lot of the stuff, for example, you take your phone and it says, okay, you get in the car and ask you want to go home? How does it know that I want to go home? I just got in the car and I'm at work. But when I'm home, it tells me, you want to go to work? How does it know that without me telling it? These phones grab that information and they do predictions off of it. App intents are a lot of it used for that. So the current knowledge that we share, the common knowledge, Apple hasn't come out telling us, but is that they suck that in. right? I guess it makes sense, right? And then they inform so one of some of the Siri, quote unquote, Siri procedures do some of that. It's not so much for you to ask a question and get responses, but to kind of do predictions that might be useful for you when you use the product. Make sense? Now, some of those, again, different bundles, IDs, or applications of apps in the device will send stuff to login. That's why it's 50 million lines in an extraction. So the point of this tool is that I should take this out of the screen so we can actually see the rest, right? I go and I create here artifacts of interest. I create here stuff for the Bluetooth status, audio status, the volume up or down, the flashlight on or off. So that way you don't have to dig into 50 million lines. I pull those out for you. And if you know a little bit of Python, it's all Python based. If you know a little Python, I invite you to send pull requests to us. Get a log from your system or from an iOS device and figure out what things we're not parsing and let us know. And if you don't know how to code it, at least tell me what lines of the code of the log are interesting, and the folks in the community will code that so we can all benefit from that knowledge. All right, so I'm going to leave you with, last thing I'm going to leave you with is go to, let me get the browser up and we're done. I promise, Walter, last thing. We're going to go to, huh? Leaps.org, hopefully I wrote it right. I don't end up in some weird page.
It's going to be in your logs.
Yeah, right? Yeah, this guy was trying to put some Bibles in some schools, and he was in a meeting, and when the meeting started, had some naked ladies in the screen. You heard about the news? Look, I'm not judging anything. I'm just saying what the news said. There we go. So, you want, and go to leaf.org, and I'm using the internet from one of my devices. Eventually, we'll load up. You can sign up for our newsletter there. So whenever Lava comes out, you'll know when it comes out. You can download it. Any news about the new thing's going to be at leaps.org. There we go. So you can
Is there a link to your blog there also? Is there a link to your blog there?
Not here. So if you want to get all of my stuff, you're going to go here. lincubeapp.com. Does it say Abrignoni already? No. Not refreshing. Abrignoni. Ugh. I can't see from this far off. Hopefully I wrote it right. Right, so go to linkubeapp.com. You'll have there my blog, all my social media, peer review research that I've done, the podcast. If you don't know how to code in Python, you want to learn how to code in Python for digital forensics. It's not for making games or play, no. It's for digital forensics, how to take a portable file and do something with it, right? How to deal with the latest version of XML files, right? ABX, they're called ABX. How to deal with those. It will show you, my internet is slow. It will show you that. So you go there, also how to reach me. There's how to send me an email and all that good stuff. Eventually it'll come up. linkubeapp.com, cheapo government internet. Abrignoni.com. Abrignoni, sorry. All right, as that comes up, I guess we can start wrapping up. Thank you for your attention, and hopefully it was helpful. Take care. Phone, you can do it.
So, and of course, now you see why, I wanted to have him now. Because we've been talking about this for a long time. I'm like, gotta get you out of here. So curiosity, a poll. If there was a workshop that dug into some of this deeper.
Walter compromises with everybody here.
As long as he'll answer my
No
questions,
pressure. No pressure.
then I'll pay.
No pressure. So. Okay. Did everybody? Everybody get the URL? Yeah. All good? Yeah. Make sure any last grab shots there before I'm watching the cameras.
It's like 56K internet that I have right now. Oh, so full time my age, good. I'm the youngest, what? 56 what?
Just waiting on Carson. Okay. fine. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, just a little bit of follow-up. So we will be getting CPE submitted if you registered with your ISC2 member ID. We will submit those for you.